You're listening to Let Me Speak to a Manager with Frank Cava and Ian Matthews.
What a crock of shit.
Yeah, that was hot mic, Sam.
It's 30 minutes away. I'll be there in 10.
Do it live! I'll write it and we'll do it live!
Frankie!
Ian, we're showing our age, buddy. We both got on our readers.
Yeah, since we're talking about the theme of a mastermind, I thought it would be good to make us look smart if we put glasses on. We look more intelligent. We look like masterminds today. So
I don't actually have any glass in these. It's just
they're just clear. They look super sweet though. You know what? You've been getting so into the tech these days that those might be some of those meta AI glasses right now that you're probably reading from a teleprompter right now. Am I even talking to Frank? Is this Frank? Or is this your AI avatar?
These are actually Bose headphones, and I have music in my ears, so I don't have to listen to you.
Yeah. You guys, all of our dozens and dozens of loyal followers out there know that we will be the last podcast that has AI bots doing them for us. It'll still be dumbass Frank and Ian bumbling our way through these things. So we'll be the last one to worry about with that.
Think about how great the show notes are going to be.
The show notes are going to be great, but we are not smart enough to do a good deep fake of a podcast episode. So Frankie, you don't have enough going on in your life, both professionally and personally, so you decided to start a new business, which is that's super awesome.
Yeah. Is this when you're going to remind me there's only two of us on this, and that was a question I need to speak up?
Frank, just a reminder, the way podcasts work with two people is when I'm not talking, you're supposed to fill in.
Our number one fan is going to really appreciate that.
Yeah, no doubt.
So I'll give a brief history of this. So I worked at Ryan Homes, NBR. This is where I met Ian. I worked there for 12, 13
Before
years.
that, where did you work?
Correct. I worked at the Outback Steakhouse.
Outback Steakhouse. Okay.
All management lessons and all good things in life were between Coach Matheson, my parents, and what I learned at Outback Steakhouse. But besides that, I worked at NBR for years. And when I quit and went off on my own, one of the things that was missing was high-level conversation. So one of the best decisions I made, I left NBR in 2009, and in 2012, I joined a mastermind group. So one of the best things I ever did in my post-Ryan career was joining a mastermind. The second best thing I ever did was leave it. And the reason for that is because it had just reached the point where I was no longer gaining from it. And I've gone to a series of masterminds since. I went to Tony Robbins's, six-figure a year group. I've gone to basically all the ones that are tangential to my space. And what I learned is what I was seeking doesn't exist. So like most good things, invention is usually the mother of necessity. And that's what it came down to. I decided to build one because I don't have the neighborhood or the community that's out there that I want. And I decided to do it.
So for you, when you say these events weren't seeking it, so you built it yourself, what are you seeking out of a mastermind?
So what I'm hopeful to find, I need to define what I do for those that don't know quickly, and then I'll tell you what it is, right? So we do direct-to-seller marketing and advertising. So we're basically people who aren't realtors who touch a lot of off-market stuff. When I started in this business years and years ago, there wasn't a professionalization to it. Wall Street showed up in around 2010, 11. And when they showed up in a big way and started to buy things. So there's become REITs and all these other things around single families. But what I was seeking in the beginning was a place to kind of learn how to do this business. I needed to pivot my skill set from Ryan Homes to a skill set of direct-to-seller marketing and advertising. I needed to go from construction to renovation. I needed to figure out how not to sell, but how to buy. And those things are different. So for the first 10 years where I was at the other mastermind, was at the other place, I learned all that stuff. And the first 4 or 5, I gained a ton. And the last 6, I gave back a bunch because I had figured it out and had figured it out in a massive way.
Yeah.
But matriculating past, I'm here to buy houses, or I'm here to just, flip a house. How do you take what that is and build wealth around it? How do you pivot it to kind of getting out of the trenches? I have a friend who runs a mastermind for dentists. And in the world of dentists, what he says is your goal as a dentist is to get out from behind the chair. We don't have in our world a mastermind that gets you out from behind the chair of being day-to-day and belly-to-belly with sellers. If you do this business right, you should have a metric ton of assets. And I do. So what I do now versus what I did before aren't the same. And there's not a neighborhood or a place to go where people talk about that. And that's what I wanted to build.
We're going to put the definition of matriculate in the show notes. I think I got a call foul on Frank here. I don't think that had anything to do with what he was talking about, but it is a big word with a lot of syllables. But matriculate, I don't know what that had to do with your conversation there, Frank.
Is it impenetrable?
It's impregnable and impenetrable and indefatigable.
So matriculate is to be enrolled at a college university. It seems he matriculated. For me, what it is, a person who has matriculated or moved into something else, that's where matriculated goes. So I guess it could be parochial, but it doesn't have to be.
Parochial, another big word. Look at the big brain on Frank.
Keep asking questions, big fella. I'm getting myself. I'm navigating myself into a cul-de-sac here.
There's also a piece of this so Mastermind is. I'll make it as simple as possible here. Frank's in the real estate space. He started going to these masterminds to be around other people who operated businesses very similar to his. So it's very hard to find a good mentor, a good coach when you're in a space like this. So the best way small business owners learn is they show up for a couple of days and they present on their business. You literally get up with a PowerPoint and you say, here's how I did this quarter. Here's the money we made. Here's the sales we made, lessons learned. Here's some things I screwed up along the way. Here's a new vendor that we really like. Here's the way I've been structuring my debt, blah, 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 blah. All stuff that Frank would go through. And when Frank was small, these were awesome because he would listen to people that were farther ahead than he was. And as Frank grew his business with this particular mastermind, there were fewer and fewer people in the room that Frank considered to be ahead of him and what he was doing. So with every meeting he would go to, he would learn less and less until he became kind of an executive in this mastermind where he was one of the main people presenting. But then you get to a place where he had a lot of ideas on how he wanted to change the way the mastermind was run. And wrong, right, or indifferent, Frank didn't own it. He was an employee. So, we talked about in our last episode with Jamie Dimon, if you don't like the way something's being run and you're not being completely listened to, or the person hears you but isn't real interested in changing, if you're that much of a badass, go build your own, go start your own. And that's exactly what Frank is doing here. And so to have a mastermind, for it to make money, you need paying members. People need to pay you, and that money makes it worth your while to run them, but also has to cover the cost of events, cost of meetings, cost of staff if Frank wants to build it. So with any business, I think one of the most interesting questions is, how did you get your first customer?
So the first customer was actually kind of easy because I had done this and I waited a while and I realized there was pent up demand. Now, I don't believe I can do what I want to do and build what I want to build without doing marketing. But I think through grassroots, through networking, through my established relationships, I can absolutely do that. And the funniest thing is, Ian, I was at a mastermind, somebody else's mastermind in September, and we went to dinner. It was about 10 of us, and literally all 10 people pinned me down and said, you have to start your own group. We've been going to these things for years. We miss hearing what you had to say, and you need to do it. And that group was a big part of our first event. That those are people who came to the event. And there's a few people who had some scheduling conflicts that will come to the next one. So I've done the work. Like, you asked me a question about this prior, but it was like, how much of what you've done in the past or how much of your current business can you rely on? I'm currently relying on a good bit of my resume, time spent at the other group, things I put on social media. I've been very, very, very intentional about what I post, and it's been casting a net because I knew I was going to do this for a while, but I waited until the right time. But so what I mostly had filled the room with, my first group of customers are people that were either people I had prior relationships with or referrals from people that I had prior relationships with.
Okay. Love it. And how many paying members do you have so far?
Somewhere between 15 and 20.
Okay. Now this first meeting, like 15 showed up to this first meeting.
Yep.
So it's kind of your first product,
Yep.
right? Your first meeting in a mastermind, your meetings are your product. If someone shows up to 2 days and thinks that was a waste of time, they will stop paying and go find another mastermind, just like Frank did. That's more valuable to them. So I have to imagine a good bit of anxiety went into this first meeting and trying to make sure that it was a good use of the folks' time that were showing up.
Yep. Do you want me to go into kind of what we did a little different and how we made sure it was effective?
How did you think about it?
Yeah. So what we did is this. So I don't know if you've ever answered this question, but I'll ask it to you. So I'll go into the criteria. To be in our mastermind, there are 3 criteria. Number 1, you must be great at something. Great. Everybody that came to this group has a skill set that is just incredible. They have a greatness. Now, it could be a small greatness, it could be a national greatness, but you got to be great at something. Number 1. Number 2, you need to be real estate adjacent. If you aren't in real estate specifically, you need to be into it tangentially or adjacent to it. And here's the adjacency. We have a mutual friend. We spent last weekend with him together. He literally puts out a newsletter and information about control systems within houses, but he pays a ton of taxes. So he makes a lot of money, but he pays a ton of taxes. So there's people in our room who are really good at depreciation and avoiding tax legally. So he was great because he has gotten Google and Amazon and Apple to sponsor his events. Really interesting. However, he needs what we need, which is access to depreciation. So I thought he was the perfect guy. The third component that you must have is you must be financially compatible. Like, you shouldn't be just starting. You need to have, it's kind of like the American Express Black Card. Nobody knows what the criteria are, but if you get one in the mail, you know you deserved it. So those are our 3 criteria. You gotta be great, real estate adjacent, and there's a fiscal component. In order to prep for the meeting, what we did, because we're small, is the gentleman who I hired to run this had a conversation with you to make sure it fit, make sure everything worked. And then we set up a 30-minute to an hour call with me. And we just talked about your business. And what people talked about from their greatness was usually not what they were traditionally or really great at. So there was a guy, he's like, I dominate my market with media. You just spend more. Your greatness isn't that. Your greatness is actually something else. So we made it so it was 16 very curated conversations around what you're good at around real estate. And the goal with that is to learn different things from other people at a very, very high level. When you show up to most masterminds, it's either a form you fill out or nobody manages your conversation at all. And we did the opposite of that, which was being very, very, very intentional about what you talked about.
So the bulk of the value for the people that are paying to come to this event, which is a 2-day event.
Yep.
2-day event. The bulk of the value they're getting are from watching their peers delivering great presentations. Is that fair?
It's the community, it's access to the things that we have access to as a community, and then it's the high level conversations, learning from those, and then speaking to other people about. It's the network. People exchange phone numbers. One of our members took a cab to the airport, or an Uber to the airport, with somebody who literally made like $1.5 million last year off of his YouTube following. So just getting under the hood and saying, how did you do it? How'd you build that? It's the presentation, but then it's the conversations about those presentations. And then how do I adapt something I found interesting into my life?
Would you consider it greatness that we lost $5,000 on our YouTube channel last year, Frank? Could that get me in? How much we lost for effort put in?
potential greatness, Ian. It's potential.
Potential greatness. Do you think we could matriculate from a $5,000 loss to a $1.5 million gain on our YouTube channel? I don't even know what our password is to our YouTube because we haven't been in there in so long to post. I'm gonna have to go dig around to find it. So hopefully it hasn't been taken over the way my Twitter account has. Which, if you guys haven't been to Ian B. Matthews, don't forget we're hawking porn now on my Twitter account because I've been hacked. It's really, really incredible stuff. So would that be considered greatness, Frank? My Twitter account, is that my management of social media in general? Would that be considered my greatness?
The Jamie Dimon rant in your future of the guy who refuses to let anyone help him set anything up in this podcast.
I feel like I have no chance of ever getting in the room of your podcast with my lack of greatness in all things in my life. So
maybe we can get your
I'm going
referral.
to have to live vicariously through you on this podcast by asking you questions because I do not have much greatness. So you get this meeting, you get everyone, you're collecting money, you've got an LLC set up, a bank account, you've got have you started to hire any employees?
Yeah, I have an employee.
Okay, so tell me about your employee. How did you choose this person and what is their position?
So I met someone. There's a company, it's a national company. They sell custom clothes to executives. And they've been pitching me for years and years and years. And I never liked the styling or the people who were there. And 3-4 years ago, they changed salesmen and someone reached out to me and I was like, okay, this seems like somebody maybe I could have a relationship with. So like, this is a custom shirt that they make for you. It's, the usual stuff, but they cut it to your body and it fits well and all this other stuff. But I've been interacting with this guy for 3-4 years, and he never asked me for a sale, and he always made me feel important. And it was the type of high level experience that I was interested in providing for members if I ever started a mastermind. So about a year ago, I started talking to him about it. And he's a talented person who makes plenty of money. So it's not an inexpensive hire. So I had to think that this was kind of a sure thing if I was going to go out on a limb and hire him. The upside is the way that I approached him and had the conversation about his job was there's the parent is our direct to seller marketing and advertising business. So I gave him an opportunity to help us and kind of put some goals in front of him that would help us with that side of the business as well. As we were getting this thing off the ground. So I was like, this isn't a 40-hour-a-week job. So what I would like you to do is help us with these core things as well. Recruiting, finding people, like sales skills, professionalizing some of the stuff that we do. So I thought of it from that perspective. Because the parent is profitable, makes money, and because there's needs in that side of the business, I was able to bring this person in and say, look, this will be your focal point, but it's going to be part-time until we get to a certain number of members. And you also have to learn the business. If you learn this particular side of the business, you're going to be more valuable to our member base. So that was it. And many people have said, don't hire anybody. You got to run it yourself. Like, I don't want to do that. And I can't. I don't have time. So by bringing somebody in and having an ability to afford somebody from my other core businesses, it gave me the ability to kind of start with a high level person who will run it versus having to bootstrap it the way I'd started everything else.
Yeah. And, you've got multiple other businesses that you're running that take a lot of your time to make a lot of money. So it'd be silly for you to try to put all of the hours into building on this. You're really trying to build this into a nice, healthy side gig. What's your goal? How many members would you like to have in this?
So the goal isn't necessarily member number. It's more content and service. And I think we can get to that level if we stay something in the roughly 50 or under range. And one of the things we made a conscious choice of is this first event, there was no service providers. Everybody's an operator. I don't know who the customer is yet. So because I don't have to sacrifice, I want a certain level of quality. I don't need to do this for the money. I have other businesses. So I get to pick and choose what we want to do in a niche way and deliver the product I think the market wants and needs. And I can do it where I don't have to sacrifice. And that was what my goal was.
Where Frank says service members too, there's operators, people that run a business, and then you can also, you can also be a member of these masterminds where you are trying to sell to everybody. So you show up and you say, hey, I'm a lender. I lend to folks of your size, and I do commercial real estate in the $2 to $5 million range. We can do bridge loans. And they get up and they do presentations, and then they spend the whole 2 days of the mastermind networking, talking to people, buying people's drinks, and trying to get new business. So it can feel like a pitch, but there's also value in it because you meet new people, and if they're good at what they do, like Frank's picked up marketing guys, he's picked up people that find lead generation for him. He's a lot of the service providers at those you've ended up bringing into your business.
100%. And we'll branch out to those as we get more defined. But instead of having someone pitching insurance, is that important? And it turns out it is. One of the conversations that came up, we had somebody who literally got sued. He had someone steal more than $2 million from him, $2 million. And he wasn't insured. He had no umbrellas. He had no theft coverage, no liability. He didn't have the right insurances. So it's not your traditional, hey, I'll insure a house. You need someone who could do whole business insurance and how to audit it. That was something that came out of this conversation that this guy lost, that he would have picked up had he just thought about it. Now that he's a member of the group, we're going to provide that for him.
Now, if I'm an operator and I'm in the real estate space and I meet all three of your criteria, how many meetings a year will I go to?
So we do 2 virtual meetings a month over a technology like this. And then we do something in the neighborhood. It's new, so we don't have it fully defined, but roughly 3 meetings in person a year.
Okay. And how long are those virtual meetings?
About an hour. Anywhere from an hour to an hour
What's
and a
the
night.
agenda? Who puts it together? What are we talking about?
So in masterminds that have 200 people, they kind of dictate to you what it is. We're so small, we're going to talk about events that matter to you individually. So there's a Q&A, and then there's kind of a synthesis meeting at the end. The second Tuesday is a Q&A. The fourth Tuesday is our meeting where we actually get on the phone and kind of solve that problem or have a conversation around another problem that we've seen from members. But we're small enough where we can be nimble and we can build the content based upon what it is that people need in the space at the moment.
Okay. And then your 3 in-person meetings, those are all planned by you? Are you the one that's putting together everything, or are you hoping that the guy that you hired for this business can start to take that over soon?
So I have a friend who runs a business similar to this. So I've used some of his resources. There's a team they're out of South America, but they actually I tell them what I'm looking for, and then they go. The easiest way to summarize it is this, Ian. When I used to build houses, I used to go on the internet and find all of the selections myself.
Yeah.
And then what I started to do is say, hey, I had a designer. I say, hey, find me 4 sinks or find me 4 of these. And eventually I said, here, this is what I'm looking for from a macro. Can you give me selections that fit this? And I pick and choose and I make changes as I need to through the selection process. It's the same thing with this. There's someone who literally goes out. I say, I want this type of feel, this type of thing in this particular market. And she went out and found 4 hotels, a bunch of restaurants, a bunch of things that we can kind of pick and choose. And she does that for a fee over the top of the cost. So it's a value add approach.
Yeah.
And it's really, really awesome. And she's great at it.
Yeah. She's an event planner. That's what Jenny did. My wife did that for years. So there's a ton of value in that. Because that can be a massive time suck.
Yeah.
Putting it together.
And they negotiate with the hotels and all that stuff. And you just show up, you do your event, and then you pay her a fee.
Now, how anxious were you for your first meeting? Like you put this thing together, it's your baby, been working on it, you spent a lot of money on it. Now you got everyone showing up. Were you anxious about it going well?
Very much. I was at the other place and in a leadership role for 6 years. I never had the stress of are people going to show up? Am I going to provide a good enough value? And the weird part of it is I had an ability to cut people off at the last place because I was held to a calendar. These people are paying me directly, so my relationship with them is a little bit different. So it's just a little bit harder to kind of hold the schedule. So those are some of the wonky things we've got to work our way through as we get further and further into this is who are the lines? Mark is the gentleman's name that's helping me run it. what will he do? How will I do it? How do we balance that stuff out? And what's the division of labor? So that's a big part.
You ever, I'm sure you have because you've been to so many events, but the story of Tony Robbins' first event that he did, like how many ways it almost fell apart, and how he had to go get people to pay to come into this thing. Like he had like 24 hours to find like 100 people to come do it. It's a crazy, stressful story. You're in a different position that you've got the finances that if something goes wrong, you could, I think your downside of this meeting is not what it would be if you were someone starting off with very low resources where you put everything you own into this meeting and it didn't go off well. You could have 3 people show up and it would suck, but it wouldn't crush you. It wouldn't throw you down.
That's a really fortunate spot to be in. And the other part of it is this, like I'm committed to it. I want to do it. I'm going to build it. And if it builds slower than I want, that's okay. Because I would rather go slow with the right people than incredibly fast and build something that I don't want and I'm not proud of and that there isn't value in. So that's it. There's tons of options out there for people to go to and go. But if it sounds like this is the right one for you, like know that it's member focused and it's quality based. And one of the things that I think is important to kind of talk about is this, but this is what made me feel good. The prep was really good. I knew everybody that walked in. So instead of going around the room and introducing people, I went around the room and introduced everybody myself and said what I thought their superpower was and what I was excited to hear them talk about. 30 people in a room, I did it with no notes. Like that's not an easy thing to do. That takes preparation. So that made me feel really good about what we talked about. So those are the little things that we can build and then we can really customize it and focus on what people want. That's exciting to me and that's fun.
Now, if you were talking to me, an operator that didn't know you, and I'm in the real estate space and I'm looking for something like this, what is the annual fees? Do you charge quarterly? Do you charge annually? You pay an annual fee? What is the?
So we do an entry level fee for the event, and the event is if that's your entry point. But if you like what we're doing content wise, you want to get involved, there's a monthly fee as well. So it's real simple. We use Stripe. There's a flat fee. It just gets billed once a month on a certain date, gets paid, and that's it. And our contract's really easy to deal with. It's like you're not making a 5-year commitment. Like you can literally do month to month, and if you don't like it, you can stop.
Wait at any time if it's not for you.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I like that. So how are you going to go about? So you've done the first with word of mouth, which I find that when starting a business or building a new product, or if you're going to go invest in something, the best way to do it is you have customers built in that are already telling you to do it. So the last 2 programs I've built for 5-on-4 group are programs that people have asked me to build. Like we have managers that are struggling with this, and this. Can you build that? Yes. Right. You go build it. It's expensive in time and effort. But I know I already have a purchase order for it. And that's kind of what you did. You got 10 people, you got to dinner that are like, if you do that, we're in. So you at least know I got year 1, at least my costs are covered to go through. Right. But for this to work, you have to be able to go move beyond your network likely and market to some people that maybe don't know you.
Yep. And what we did with the first event, we were real intentional, right? There was 16 business owners that came with everybody else and staff. It was like 28 total people. And I hired professional photographers, professional videographers, and I knew going in who was talking about what. So we have a logo, we have a name. It's called The Council, but if you go look for it, you're not going to find it because it's not public. But the reason I talk about all this stuff is we actually have something that have you ever seen the video box? It's a really cool box. When you open it up, it's like a card that comes.
Yeah.
And it plays a video.
Mm-hmm.
So we have a 90-second video that we've edited about what we are, what we do, how we do it. We have 3 product offerings on the right. We talk about all of those and send them to a squeeze page, or a landing page, a website. So the upside of that is Mark is building that for me as we speak. He literally walked over an hour ago when I was on with you initially to show me it came in the mail. So we're building those types of things. And then with all the stuff that I do, I know how to find people like me. So we know how to find people. We're looking for like the best 1,500 operators like us around the US, and we're going to just slowly grow it. First event was in Denver. Second event's going to be in Richmond. Third event, we're going to go somewhere in the middle of the country at the end part of the year, like roughly every 4.5 months is what our rhythm is for when we're going to meet.
At the old place that you worked for, what did you like about their strategy for customer acquisition? What did you like about how they grew?
That was one of my biggest gripes. It was mostly through referral, and we weren't strategic in how we went into markets. I ran an ad 100 times, like, how come we don't have the best person in Green Bay or the best person in Austin, Texas? Like, let's go after the best 5 people in every market and be real aggressive with it. That's what we're doing here. We're sending out personalized pieces, handwritten envelopes, and we're going to find the absolute best people. And because of some of the people that we know, like, hey, who do you know that's great in this particular market? One of the people who came to this event was the biggest realtor in the state of Minnesota. Basically, it's Kirk Cousin a couple of years ago, Sam Darnold now, and then this guy are like the most recognizable people in the entire state. And so that's how we're doing it, is just kind of piece by piece. And the upside is, like I said, I'm not in the rush. It could go, if there's 12 members, as long as the members are getting their value, and they will, then I'm comfortable with that, as long as it grows in a way that is high quality.
What are the odds of you locking down the #1 realtor in the state of Indiana, though?
He's actually somebody I thought about, but I thought it was a little too early.
Your only issue with Jeff is he may not get off the stage. You could find entire days being dominated by Jeff talking at your members.
That was what I was thinking as well. I need a little structure first before we brought him in.
So you just finished this meeting. You've been working your ass off on this for the last 6-7 months. Next meeting is already planned. How do you feel? How's everything?
The next meeting is loosely planned. We're putting that together as we speak, dates and times, but it's going to be sometime early summer, and it's going to be here. And we've got a group of about 40 people who we think are interested. So our goal is to get to roughly 20 and bring them in. And I want to do a little bit of a component of kind of an on-site along with what we do, because that was really big. The systems and things that we have in place here, it's hard to demonstrate that when you're remote. So we're going to do kind of a 2-day event with a 3rd day bolt-on where you can stay back and look at some of the systems and things we put in place.
Love it. Love it. You got anything else to add on your venture into yet another business? What's the name of it, by the way?
The Council.
The Council. How'd you come up with that name?
So the Council with an IL is where they discuss swing sets and sidewalks. The Council is something I came up with a bunch of different. The Consigliere was what I love, because I love mob movies, but it's too niche and it's too Italian.
Hagen.
Exactly. But the upside of what a consigliere is in a business is it's somebody who gives you advice, or is an ear, or is somebody that you can talk to about your biggest problems. And the counsel you get back from that person is incredibly valuable. My legal counsel is someone who I talk to all the time, because he's a merger and acquisitions attorney, and what he gives me in return is incredible counsel. So I thought of it from that perspective. If this is the right group of people, we will be providing the right feedback or information or backstop with feedback that you need in your business. And that's how we came up with it.
I love it. Last question before we wrap this up. Is there any chance that you are going to learn something about how to podcast so that this show doesn't suck as bad as it does?
We can hope.
Could you find someone who's great at podcasting that we could learn from on this, Frank? Maybe?
I'm trying, Ian. I'm trying real hard.
Greatness in the podcasting world, so we need the help, Frank. We need
no doubt.
We need counsel if we're going to matriculate to another level. Hey, buddy, it was good to see you. You look great in those Walgreens readers that you bought. I'm looking forward to you getting an actual prescription and bringing in lots of different kinds.
I got these at the airport on the way back from Denver.
You looked really smart, dude. See you, Frankie.
If you like what you just heard, and judging by the viewership numbers, you did, hit that follow button and leave us a 5-star review. It helps other people find the show. And it lets Frankie and I know that, a few people are listening to this.